SEC has necessarily gotten worse.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. So moving on to the NFL. Let's get the Dolphins. That's right. How about them Cowboys? You want to do the Cowboys first? Or you want to talk about the Dolphins first?
Let's get the Cowboys out of the way.
All right. So every year, this is what happens. The Cowboys bandwagon just grows. There's not a lot of people on it, and then all of a sudden, everybody piles on. All these shows, lots of people just. I think this is the Cowboys' year. It just seems like it's like the same thing that happens with Texas. It's the same thing that happens with the University of Miami. We're back. This is what happens. Everybody comes in, jumps, the bandwagon gets full. Everybody's like, oh my God, we're awesome. And then, the Cowboys play a team that's really good and they get beat because the Cowboys are inferior. And it's not to say that the Cowboys are a bad team. They're not a bad team. No, they're a good team. They make the playoffs. They usually win more than 10 games. They got a good team. But I was just especially this year, I was just really confused because the Cowboys really didn't improve their team from last year to this year. It's basically the same team except they changed offensive coordinators. They got rid of Zeke Elliott, right? They basically have one legitimate wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb, one legitimate running back in Tony Pollard, and Dak Prescott, and it's essentially the same team it was last year. The defense is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. And this is kind of what you get. So I'm just confused. Why did everybody think things would be different for the Cowboys? Is it just because that's what happens every year or what?
Yeah. So I would echo that sentiment also, because I didn't get it. Like when I'm seeing Nick Wright say, oh, well, I think this is the Cowboys' year to go to the Super Bowl. This is the best team they've had in 25 years. I would actually push back on that. I think the team that they had with Romo, and they had the really, really good offensive line and DeMarco Murray, and they made the playoffs. They beat Detroit, albeit on some bad refereeing. But then they played the Packers in Green Bay. They had that pass to Dez Bryant.
Right, Dez Bryant.
It wasn't a catch. But if, say, he catches that, maybe they win that game, they go on to play Seattle. Seattle was vulnerable that year. I mean, they shouldn't have made the Super Bowl. They had to really, get a really lucky win against Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. So, and by the way, the Cowboys' offensive line at that point, all those guys were young. They were really good. That was clearly the best offensive line in the league. Okay? Defensively, I mean, I guess they were pretty good. I don't remember who they had at the time. But yeah, so the idea that this is the best Cowboys team in 25 years, okay. First of all, I disagree. I think there were other Cowboy teams that were better. And also, what about this team was so great? Dak Prescott's won 2 playoff games. He beat a Seattle team that Dallas was clearly better than. Okay? Then he beat the Bucs last year, and the Bucs last year were a disaster. Okay? So, and Brady was just about done. So I don't see why that's so impressive, and Dak Prescott is, again, this is what's so funny to me. I don't really want to rip on Dak Prescott. He's had a pretty good career. 4th round pick, comes in, wins a couple playoff games. He's won a bunch of games. He's made the playoffs several times. He's pretty good. He's getting paid a lot of money. But, he's not an elite quarterback. I don't think any reasonable person thinks that he's on the same level as, the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league. Clearly not. He doesn't play that well in big games. He doesn't play that well from behind. And also, look at the rest of this team. Outside of the defense, what is so great about the offense? The offensive line is, again, I was talking about the team from 2014. That's 10 years ago. Their offensive line is not that good anymore. It's good, It's probably one of the better offensive lines. It's not the best. The 49ers offensive line is clearly the best right now. You look at their receivers. Does anybody talk about CeeDee Lamb as one of the best receivers in the league? You can criticize the Buffalo Bills wide receiving corps, but they at least have Stephon Diggs. He's really good. The Chiefs, we can criticize their receiving corps, but they do have Travis Kelce, Hall of Famer. The Cowboys don't have anything like that. And also it's think about, Mike McCarthy. What is Mike McCarthy as a head coach? I mean, they won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, okay. but you didn't do anything else really the rest of the time there. You made the playoffs a bunch of times, but you kept getting beat, badly in some cases. As a play caller, he's not that innovative. He's not doing anything that really makes Dak Prescott's job all that much easier. And Dak Prescott, he throws a lot of interceptions. He's not as mobile as he used to be. What is it about this team that makes you guys think that? And also, the people who think that, the 49ers and the Cowboys aren't that far apart. No, they're clearly much farther. The 49ers are clearly much better than the Cowboys. Okay? And you can get into whether you think Dak Prescott's better than Brock Purdy or not. Brock Purdy just doesn't have that much experience yet. So we don't really know. Okay? But when you just watch the 49ers play, look at how they dominate the lines of scrimmage. Look at the talent they have on defense. You have Kyle Shanahan, who's arguably the greatest offensive mind in the league right now. It's outside of like Andy Reid, or Sean McVay or something. So again, why did people think that this team was going to be different? I don't get it. I understand if you want the Cowboys to be really good, but they're clearly not. They're just, they're a decent team. They're not bad. I'm not saying they're terrible. They're just, they're okay.
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing that's going on. Yeah. You watch that game, and Clark, it was 42-10 in the third quarter, and then everybody got pulled. Like, it's not like, oh, well, the Cowboys were competitive. No, they weren't. That game was over. They could have hung 60 or 70 if they wanted to. Okay. They chose not to. So it's not like we're, 32-point win, and it was not as close as the score. So, but you said something interesting that I want to bring up. Like people like the defenders of Dak say, well, he's a top 10 quarterback. Okay. But people are, and I think we've talked about this before. People are getting that mixed up. Just because you're in the top 10 doesn't mean you're elite. Like, that's what I think people are missing. Like, and this is my opinion is this. I think there are 5 or 6 elite guys. Okay, so I think it's Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. You want to put Lamar Jackson in there, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. We could talk about that, but I think there's 5 for sure that are these guys are. I think these guys are elite, right? And then after that, I think Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford to me are in like the next tier below that. Like, they have the ability to be elite. Like Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. They have the ability to be elite, but they're not as consistently elite as those top 5 guys are. And then after that, I think it's basically all about the next 6 or 7 quarterbacks are all the same. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr. I don't see a whole lot of difference. I think they're all the same when you get into that category.
Yeah, and I think the deal is that those really, really top elite quarterbacks. Remember, it's an exclusive category. You can't have 15 elite quarterbacks, okay?
Right.
It's an exclusive category. And what do we mean by that? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, they can change the outcome of games because of how they play. They can do stuff that it's like, the defense played really well, it doesn't matter. We're going to beat you. They can... That's a totally game-changing thing. They can put the team on their back and make them win the game. There's only a few quarterbacks in the league at any given time that can do that. Okay? Dak Prescott doesn't do that. Okay? No offense to the guy. Like I said, he's had a nice career. He's going to continue to have a nice career. Probably going to make a lot more money. But, he doesn't change stuff. If the Cowboys have a lot around him, the Cowboys can be pretty good. And even now, they don't technically have a ton around them, but they got a really good defense. They're probably going to make the playoffs again this year. They'll probably win like 10 games. So he's good enough for that. But when it comes to you're playing the 49ers, you're outmatched, we need you to go be special, he's not that guy.
Yeah, and like I said, there's no difference between Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr or Ryan Tannehill or any of these other quarterbacks you want to name.
One guy's just got a star on his helmet.
Yeah, I mean that's all it is. So it's like the argument for Dak. Oh, well, he's a top 10 quarterback. Okay, that doesn't really matter. There's never been 10 elite quarterbacks in the NFL ever. Maybe that's going to change. Well, probably not. But that's never been the case where there were 10 guys that were like all in the Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen class. So I just thought that was interesting. As far as the 49ers go, Clark, I mean, that offense is special. I don't
The
know.
defense is special.
The
I mean,
defense is special. The whole team's special. I don't know why I'm singling out the offense, but I'm just saying from what I'm watching, I'm just going. I mean, I don't know how good Brock Purdy is. I'm not going to get into the how good is Brock Purdy debate, but he's good enough to win a lot of games on this team. And even if he's just by the way, if he's just Jimmy Garoppolo where he doesn't get hurt and doesn't make the big mistake, that's all they need. That's all they need to win the Super Bowl. People are getting caught up in this nonsense about, oh, well, how good is he? Do you think he's elite? It doesn't matter, folks. All he's got to do is run their offense correctly, and it's a nightmare to try to stop. And
well, the other thing is, think about the rest of the NFC, okay? I mean, you got the Eagles. I like the Eagles. I think on both lines of scrimmage, they're really good. And I think they're, over the course of the season, I think their offense will get better. But they can run the ball. We know they can run the ball, and their defense is really good. So to me, it's between the 49ers and the Eagles. I mean, and everybody else is kind of looking up at them. I mean, I like Seattle. I like Detroit. And the Cowboys are good, but we just saw them get their asses kicked by the 49ers. So, yeah, everybody else is looking up at them. And so if you're the 49ers, I mean, like you said, if Brock Purdy just go out there, run the offense, make good reads, don't fuck it up for your defense, and if they can run the ball, it's over. They're going to the Super Bowl. Now again, it's really early in the season, and injuries could derail anything. They could derail any of these teams. So the 49ers, they've pretty much got everybody there. They're healthy, and when it's like that, they're scary. They're really hard to beat.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens the rest of the year. But yeah, that's all. We'll see. Again, we'll reserve judgment on how good Brock Purdy is. I know he's playing really well right now, and I think some people get the idea, oh, he's just a system quarterback. I don't think that's entirely true. I think he does a good job making plays on the move and kind of reading stuff ahead of time. I don't think it's all just Kyle Shanahan just calls the play and is like, here, throw it here. No, I don't think it's that simple. But it is easier when you have Kyle Shanahan calling the plays.
Well, I think he's got a when I watch Brock Purdy play, and let's get into the Dolphins now. I mean, Clark, I see Tua. That's what I see. If you take out the injuries and a bunch of the nonsense about Tua with the hype and the first round pick stuff, you get rid of that, they're running basically the same offense.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the same throws. So I'm watching it just going it's literally he's just doing exactly what Tua would do in this type of deal, and I just think he's perfect for them. But talking about the Dolphins, they managed to win the game against the Giants, and bad news, Devon Achane looks like they put him on IR, so he's going to be out at least 4 games. So that's unfortunate for Miami, because the guy was absolutely tearing it up. And before Christian McCaffrey's game on Sunday night, he was leading the NFL in rushing. So that really sucks as a Dolphins fan. But look, they got the win. It wasn't the prettiest game. They were a little bit sloppy, made some mistakes on offense. But you know what, Clark? What's impressive is they won that game easily. It wasn't even oh man, that was really in doubt. No, they had control of that game the entire time, even though they basically handed the Giants 10 to 13 points. It didn't even matter. That's how good the Dolphins are. And by the way, I saw it, a few weeks ago. I'm like, when the Dolphins play average or below average teams, we're going to smoke them, because they have no answer for what we're doing as long as we don't screw it up too bad. So, positive ones, and we're running the ball, and it's starting to look like the 49ers running game, which is man, that's really something. I have concerns about the defense, and we'll find out. We're not going to find out this week against the Panthers. I mean, if the Dolphins lose this game, they have nobody to blame but themselves. This should be the easiest win of the season. They're 13-point favorites, which I can't remember the last time the Dolphins were 13-point favorites. So
look, the Dolphins are. I'll just say this: the Dolphins are fun to watch, which is cool. We haven't had a fun to watch Dolphins team in a while. And yeah, they're going to beat up on a lot of bad teams. But I think we both still have concerns about, I don't think they can really beat really good teams. I don't see it, because you're going to need Tua to be special. and I don't trust the Dolphins' offensive line. And defensively, you can clearly move the ball in the Dolphins' defense. I mean,
Yeah.
that's doesn't seem to be a question at this point. We'll see if it gets better, but yeah, I still have a lot of concerns. Like for instance, they play Kansas City. I don't, I'm not looking forward to that game. They got to play the Eagles. I mean, we'll see if Tua survives that game. I mean, Jesus, I'm really worried about the Eagles' defensive line against the Dolphins' offensive line. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to find out in a week and a half against the Eagles whether how exactly where we're at with this team. But that being said, Clark, the speed is out of control. Like when A-Chain took that ball and ran, and the safety took the angle, and he just like went right around him. Like, and you can see it watching the game. Like, oh, dude, that's a bad angle. He's going to blow by you, and it's incredible. The speed on the field, and the Tyreek Hill catching the screen pass and running for 60 yards. I mean, it's just I can't remember this much speed on a team before. This is absolutely insane what they can do. But yeah, no, we have the same concerns we had before the season, the offensive line and the defense. And now that it looks like Armstead's going to be out for a while, so they're going to be using a backup left tackle. And, I'm reading all these articles on Finsider or whatever it is. Like, how is Liam Eichenberg still starting, So I don't know what's going to happen when we play, because the Eagles are just monsters. So, yeah, I look at it like it's funny, like where we go as a Dolphins fan. Like, I could be flying high if I want to, but my attitude is just, can we keep Tua healthy through the Eagles game?
As a Dolphins fan, here's the only outcome that you should be like, I just absolutely have to have this, and everything else, forget it. What you want at the end of the Dolphins-Eagles game, you want Tua to go walk over to Jalen Hurts and like, hey, buddy, because we played at Alabama, good to see you. Have a good rest of the season. And then they'll both go back to the locker room. The reason you want to see that is because it means Tua survived the game. Okay? That's why you want to see that. Okay? Regardless of what else happens in the game, just hope that they're like, hey, buddy, good to see you. And then
Yeah, it's a sad existence as a fan. I don't like it. This is why I didn't want to draft him. I don't want to deal with this every goddamn week. Is he going to get hurt on every play? I'm listening to and this happened last year. Like anytime he takes a sack or whatever, everybody's like, "Oh man, what are you doing?" It's like, he's playing quarterback in the NFL, right? He's going to get hit. Like we have to accept that that's a reality, and that's what sucks. It just sucks that and I'm sitting here every week, and I hate to be the sadist, but I'm just waiting for it. When is the injury going to happen? Like, what's it going to be? Like, it doesn't have to be horrible, but that's the thing. Like, people are mistaking, like, oh my God, it's going to be career ending. No, it doesn't need to be career ending. All he's got to do is, break a rib or, sprain a wrist or, sprain an ankle or whatever. That's all it has to be to totally derail the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, I mean, they're doing their job. Like, they're doing their job to the best of their ability. They're putting him in the quarterback in the best position to succeed. They're getting rid of the ball quick. They're trying to run the ball, which is what we were preaching the whole offseason. Guys, you got to run the ball. You can't be throwing the ball all over the place, even though I know you have dynamic players on the outside, but you can't just be throwing it whenever you feel like it. And so it's, I'm happy with the performance so far. Let's see how it goes next week.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna rattle off some NFL takes. First of all, from the start of the season, okay, there are 3 teams that I never believed in, that people were telling me, hey man, like these teams are going to be good. People were telling me that, from the beginning of the season. I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, the Cowboys are on that list every year, so I'm not going to include them. But these 3 teams, I thought people were way too high on, and I didn't understand why. The Bears, the Falcons, and the Steelers. Now, I understand the Steelers and the Falcons are both 3-2. Like, you can try to tell me that they're good if you want to. Go ahead, have fun. But Atlanta needed a last-second drive to beat Houston. Okay, they should have really lost to Green Bay the week before, or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. Like, I'm not buying Atlanta at all as some kind of 8 or 9 win team. And the Steelers, I mean, whatever. You can support the Steelers all you want. They're a complete fraud. That's 3-2 by I don't know how in God's name they're 3-2. They're behind in every game. Their offense does jack shit every game. They can't do anything. Their only offense is every once in a while Kenny Pickett will throw a 40-yard bomb to or George Pickens. That's the only move that they have on offense.
Yeah, I think basically if you want your team to finish, at 500 or right above 500, you just add Mike Tomlin. Okay, just do that. You'll finish above 500 somehow, some way. Like they'll just hang around and grind out these games. They're not winning the Super Bowl. They're not going to win any playoff games. But they'll finish above 500. I think we kind of know that's what's going to happen. They'll just sort of eke out some of these games, and their defense will just T.J. Watt will make enough plays, and
It's fine. Just don't tell me they're good. Don't try to tell me that's a good team, because it's not. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of crap that they've thrown together. Our defense is awesome and we'll win this way. Good luck. They can't run the ball. Their offensive line sucks. Seriously. Baltimore just dropped all kinds of passes in the game the other day, and that was just a freak show of a game. They should have won that game easily. So, yeah, I don't buy the Steelers. Another one was the Bears. Like, the over-under was 7.5. I'm like, in what world are the Bears going to win 7 games? Like, forget what's happened this season. Before the season, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? This team is a rebuild. This is a full-on rebuild. I know they made the trade for DJ Moore, so their offense should be better. And by the way, their offense did play better against Denver. It played better against Washington. Like, okay, they're making some positive strides. It's fine. But this team was never going to compete for the playoffs. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, that just blew my mind. Like, I don't get it. And I'm a Justin Fields supporter. I still am behind him. I think the guy, I'm hoping that he figures it out. I'm not bailing on him yet. But this idea that the Bears were going to be good, I'm like, they got no players. What are we doing here? So I don't think I think people are overreacting. I think people are going crazy on the Bears. Oh, they got to fire Matt Eberflus. I'm like, why? Like, they've got nothing. Like, so anyway, so those 3 teams. Then there's 3 teams that I liked that nobody else did. Oh, did you have something to say about the Bears? Did you have something to say about the Bears, or did I get?
So I was just going to say, I agree with you on the Bears and the Steelers. The Falcons, I still think the Falcons can compete for that division. Right. I like Arthur Smith. I think he's a good offensive coach. And I like Bijan Robinson. I like some of their pieces, which that's fine if you think, oh, they're kind of a fun team, and I kind of like them, and maybe they can. I mean, the NFC South is not very good, so me saying they can compete for that division isn't really saying all that much. So if you think that, fine. But like, were people saying they thought the Falcons were going to be like an elite team or something like that?
Well, I think the over under was like 8.5 or 9.5, and not an elite team, right. But that. Right, but that they were going to win. I don't see it, Clark. I mean, I think the Saints are going to win that division. I think they're clearly the best team, and I think Atlanta's okay, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't think this team's going to be legit when it comes down to it.
They haven't finishing 7-10.
Right, but they haven't beaten anybody good, and
no, exactly.
I don't think they're going to
beat anybody good. But I could see them finishing 7-10. So
yeah. Yeah, I get
but
that.
If you think about it, 7-10, you're right around 500. So that's all I'm really saying. I'm just saying they're not terrible. Right. I'm just saying they're they're whatever.
Yeah, I just never was a believer. The 3 teams that I liked that nobody else did, everybody was telling me, oh, I don't know about this, blah blah blah. The Rams, number 1, people this year like, oh, they're going to be bad. This is a rebuild, blah blah blah, and I'm like, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Like, I know Cooper Kupp was injured, but. Like, they're going to be bad? They still have Aaron Donald? Like, I didn't buy it. I'm not saying the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl or anything. But this idea that they were just going to be terrible and have a top 5 pick next year, I'm like, that's garbage to me. And we've already seen it. Like, I don't think they're a great team, but they're hanging in there in these games. They hung in there against the 49ers. They played a lot better against the 49ers than the Cowboys did. Yeah. So I think the Rams are good. I think they might be competing for the playoffs. Do I think they're going to like get in and do any damage? No, they don't have enough players for that. But they do have good enough to be able to compete every week. That just kind of blew my mind. That people were just like out on the Rams. The other one was people weren't necessarily out on them, but I felt like it was just kind of like the Packers and the Bears at the same over under. They're both 7.5, and I'm like, how are these teams the same? Like, I just didn't get that at all. I'm like, the Packers are way better than the Bears. Like, I don't think the Packers are great. I don't think the Packers necessarily go into the playoffs, but they're not going to be terrible. Now, it doesn't make me look good the last 2 weeks. They haven't played very well. So, but I still think
Well,
the Packers are
they've
going to be
had some
decent.
injuries too, like David Bakhtiari on the offensive line and one of the running backs. Um, yeah, and Jordan Love, you know, he doesn't look all that great. Maybe that changes over time as he gets more starts. I don't know, but that's going to kind of hurt them, and it's going to make it difficult for them to beat good teams. But I mean, they get to play the Bears one more time. They haven't played the Vikings yet, and the Vikings are going to be without Justin Jefferson for like a month, and the Vikings are already they're 1-4. I mean, the Vikings might be looking at trying to draft Drake May or something, or maybe they're a couple injuries away from being in the Caleb Williams, for being like, oh, we could get Caleb Williams. So, the Packers are still, maybe they're still competing for a playoff spot. But yeah, I think the Lions are clearly, and also given the fact that the Lions played the Packers and kicked the shit out of them. So I think the Lions are clearly the best team in that division.
Yeah. The other team, and this is the least controversial, was the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are really good. I don't think they're elite, but I think they're really good. I think they've got all kinds of weapons on offense. The defense is starting to come around. I know they beat the Giants, and that's not really an accomplishment. But I think the Seahawks are going to be good. I think they could win 9 or 10 games, and I think they're, talent wise, they're as good as anybody outside
Yeah.
of Philadelphia and San Francisco in the NFC. So I think they're right there. Um, the other thing I want to talk about is, I mean, Clark, went through 5 weeks. I think Denver and New England, those are complete tear down rebuilds. Like, that's where we are. Those two teams are bad. Like, that is a complete tear it down to the studs and start over. I don't know that there's a whole lot of redeeming players on either team. Denver probably has a couple more, but New England has no talent. I mean, I never understood it from the beginning of the season why people were telling me, oh, I think this team's going to be. They have no players. And this has continued to happen. The talent drain on that team has been going on for I don't know how long. And especially since Brady left, and last year Brady was there, they weren't good on offense, especially either. They had hardly any talent. And it's just gotten worse from there. So I don't know what's going to happen with Bill Belichick. I don't know what's going to. I mean, Sean Payton's probably going to stay in Denver, so we probably don't have to worry about that. But yeah, Clark, I'm shocked. I mean, I'm not completely shocked on New England. I am shocked on Denver. We thought coming into the season, based on last year, okay, the defense should be pretty good, and if Sean Payton can just get the offense a little bit better, they should be kind of competitive. Man, the defense is bad, and I know people are going to tell me, well, Russell Wilson's not the main problem. Yeah, but he's a quarterback who's going to be making $50 million a year real soon. Like this ain't going to work. Russell's not playing well enough to justify anywhere near his contract, and this is just I don't know what they're going to do, but this isn't going to work, man. Like those two teams from the beginning of the season, like that is just straight up scrap it, throw everything in the trash, and start over.
Yeah. Yeah, the Patriots, I just, the game has passed Bill Belichick by, and it's just a question of how long is it going to take for Robert Kraft and the other people there to accept it and move on. I mean, because I just don't like, and the thing is, I think people get the idea, well, they're really bad. They could go get Caleb Williams. And I'm like, that would help them to an extent. But, I, I mean, again, it's hard to play offense in the NFL now when you don't have a lot of weapons. And if you draft Caleb Williams, fine. You think they're going to draft like good wide receivers? Because the last 20 years have indicated that they clearly have no idea. That Bill Belichick clearly has no idea how to draft good receivers. Okay, he basically has no idea how to draft anybody good. Sometimes he gets lucky, I guess. I mean, so yeah, they literally need to move on. I mean, this is like, and Patriots fans, like, I don't understand. Do you really want him to just be there until he breaks Don Shula's record? I mean, you realize that like he'll do that, and then there'll still be plenty of people who will be like, yeah, but he cheated. Which, he did to an extent. I don't know how much.
Not to an extent. He did.
Yeah.
He cheated.
Yeah.
There's no extent about it.
There's going to be a lot of people who just they're not going to like it. They're never going to really give him the credit for that. And also, look, I've been saying this, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, like, if they keep winning like this over 6 or 7 more years, they win a few more Super Bowls, people are going to start going, you know what, maybe that's the best.
Well, that's the other thing, Clark. I mean, Bill Simmons was talking about this on his podcast. Andy Reid is only like 50 wins behind Belichick. So and obviously he's going to be gaining on him pretty fast for the next 4 or 5 years. It looks like. So the thing is, like, Belichick might be in some trouble. Forget him breaking the record. He might get passed anyway. So I don't know how Belichick looks at this, but yeah, that could be that may not even matter.
Do the math. Okay, if Andy Reid coaches for 7 more years and the Chiefs win at least 10 games, which I think a lot of these years they're going to win more than 10 games, like 12 or 13. Okay, so 7 years, that's like 70 games. Okay, probably more, between 70 and 80 games. So it's not that far fetched, you know. So Patriots fans, it's like, do you guys really want to cling to this? You won 6 Super Bowls. Like, it's over. You know, Belichick, right. We've got no indication that he's going to modernize what he's doing or bring in a GM or bring in a creative offensive coordinator. No offense to Bill O'Brien, but, I mean, you know, there's a lot more creative offensive minds in the NFL than him. So, whatever. I mean, look, if the Patriots are just going to be bad for several years and they can't let go, like, okay, I'm a Dolphins fan. Like, go ahead and do that. I'm fine with that. But
well, yeah, that's the funny part, Clark. I enjoyed the Dolphins winning. I enjoyed the Patriots getting shut out a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
That was just fabulous. You couldn't have asked for better. The Dolphins win, the Bills lose, the Patriots get shut out at home. Like, that was a pretty good day. Denver couldn't come through and beat the Jets for us, but whatever. You can't have everything. So any other NFL things you want to talk about?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on. I don't think so. At this point, yeah, no. I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the Bengals at this point?
The Bengals are hanging on, and they're going to be. I think the Bengals are going to be one of those teams that they're going to get better from here, because Joe Burrow looked like Joe Burrow again. Like, he was hitting deep balls, and he was moving a little bit. I think he ran on a couple of plays. So I think he's getting healthy, and I think he's going to get healthier every week. And I think they're going to get better every week. And they're going to be a team you don't really want to play when we get to December. But they have a tough stretch of games here the next 2 or 3 games. But the way the AFC is kind of going, like, I think they're going to
question that too. I'm looking at the AFC. I'm like, who is, like, again, if you're asking me to pick a team, I guess I'll just pick the Chiefs. You know, but the Chiefs have some issues. They're not unbeatable.
Right. Chiefs aren't playing well.
Yeah.
The Chiefs aren't playing well. And once Travis Kelce went out of that game, you're like, what are they going to do? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, Travis Kelce was out of that game for like 20 minutes. You're like, what the hell are they going to do now? You know, because I don't know about these receivers. And yeah, no, the Chiefs have got some issues. And Buffalo's good is really good. But you've also seen that they just kind of no-show some games.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of took the Jets game off. They went over to, I'm going to give Buffalo a break because they went over to London. I mean, that whole London, the playing overseas thing is a joke. I don't take much from it. So, but Buffalo's not unbeatable. Like, they've shown they have the ability to play really well, but they don't do it every week. And so I think it's sitting there. The Bengals, like, if they just continue to get better every week, they're going to be in the hunt. It's going to be difficult because of, they're 2-4. So it's going to be 2-3. Okay. So it's going to be difficult, and they have the next couple of games. I think they play the 49ers and they play the Seahawks, and I forget who else. But they have a really tough stretch of games. And so, but again, and after Thanksgiving, football is different than football is now. And that's another thing I worry about with the Dolphins. Like, the game changes when you get into late November and early December. And so we'll see, where they're at that point. But yeah, I think the Bengals are coming, and they're going to be a problem.
Yeah.
They're not going to probably get one of the top 2 or 3 seeds, but it doesn't matter. You get into the playoffs, and they're not going to be fun.